The sound is good in this room, it's not great. After all these years, I've never gotten around to properly acoustically treating this studio. So while it is soundproof, which is awesome, it doesn't sound great in here. An engineer friend recently recommended to me that I just need a cloud up there, and that would go a long way towards helping. So I was experimenting with it while I was recording a project recently. But I don't know, it just kind of looks ugly and doesn't seem to make a difference. So there's something I've been wanting to share with you for a while now, and it's not the Pan Dues Eberswald, although that's great. And no, it's not this new bike park I found. It is some new music that I composed. And I felt like rather than just sharing the music, which I'm gonna do in this video, I wanted to present a little context around it, some digital liner notes, if you will. So the piece is called Pause, Reset, and it's for Saxophone Quartet, something I'd never written for before. And here's what happened. It was about April 2020. I was at home, like all of us, during the beginnings of the COVID pandemic quarantine lockdown. I was supposed to have been in Pennsylvania working with the Slippery Rock University Jazz Ensemble, but you know. So the director there, Jason Cush, reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in writing for his quartet, the Bridges Saxophone Quartet. And I think I initially turned it down, saying I've never done this before, so I don't know how to do it. And he was very generous and encouraging, saying that just write us something, you know, it'll be fine. I realized, okay, this kind of scares me in a good way. I should say yes. And he said, take as much time as you need. And I said, it'll never happen. You got to give me a deadline. So he gave me a generous deadline, and I spent the first half of that time just worrying that I wouldn't have any ideas, or I don't know how to do this, or what have I gotten myself into. But finally I got down to business, and I had a couple of things in mind for this piece that I wanted to explore. Number one was the idea of panning, not something that I get to really think about when I'm writing for just a regular band quartet type situation. The way in which you arrange the saxophones on stage could really influence or affect the type of music. So I did some homework. I didn't want to be too influenced by what a saxophone quartet should be, but I listened to a variety of things, classical material, maybe what you might call more jazz or show band quartets, some minimalist quartets, things of that nature. I finally decided on the arrangement of the instruments that I was going to use. That was something I was going to play with. The other thing on my mind was to make sure that the soprano wasn't always the lead or melody line, and that the baritone wasn't always the bass or supportive line. I wanted to make sure that all four saxophones had, maybe not equal, but had time trading melody and accompaniment. So those were the two things that I was working with, along with sort of just a general time parameter. So while this piece is not specifically about anything, contextually, the time it was written in, a lot was going on. So obviously we all were dealing with this global pandemic and very uncertain times, of course, still are. But halfway through writing this, George Floyd was killed. And that, of course, added an entire new level of sadness and reflection and just a lot of emotion to what was already such a difficult period of time that we were all experiencing. So I say that just to mention that this is what was happening while I was writing this piece of music, and I don't want to make it seem like it's anything more grandiose than it is. It's a song, it's a piece of music, but that's what was going on when I wrote it. Now, there was one technical hurdle that we had to get around, which was that the guys weren't going to be able to record together at this point. So having written in fermatas, retards, accelerandos, etc., I realized like that was going to be really difficult, if not impossible, for them to record remotely. So I had to go back to the drawing board a little bit. I ended up making MIDI music -1 tracks for them, so that the soprano, while you're playing the soprano part, you could be listening to alto, tenor, bari. While you're playing the bari part, you're listening to soprano, alto, tenor, etc. And it worked out pretty well, and the guys did a fantastic job recording it, and their tenor player, Joe Scheller, hope I'm saying your name right, Joe, also edited the whole thing. So everything you're gonna see, Joe did. He did all the video editing, audio recording, everything. That's not my handiwork. Great job. I really love what he did with it. That's it. That's the context. That's what's going on. And the resulting piece is Pause, Reset. And if you're interested in playing it yourself, there's a link down below to get the score and the parts and the MIDI play-alongs. And if you do end up recording it digitally with either yourself or your pals or whatever, put it up somewhere and tag me with my name and pause reset. That would be fun to see what you come up with. So without further ado, I present to you my first ever saxophone quartet, Pause Reset, performed by the Bridges Saxophone Quartet.